hidden. Very well. Going back to the main page. So hello everybody. We are starting recording late, but because at first we thought we were gonna have a nice chat about insight sharing, but we realized we don't know what is insight sharing, and we think we found out something what could be useful for everybody. So I started on the first page where everybody joins in, and we were having a discussion about the NFT business models. So we are gonna go into this, and Sian will introduce us to the challenge, and then we are going to read what is Idea Scale asking from us about insight sharing, and then trying to put these two things together and see if we are understanding it right. Okay.
So Melanie, would you like to read the campaign brief so that we all understand it, and then we can respond to the insights that are being requested from us as a community.
Perfect.
To help the community?
Okay, campaign brief. So as somebody, a community member, this is the process that I would be going through to understand the particular challenges and subcategories so that I can contribute the best way I can. So that's for myself. Campaign brief. Purpose, purpose, a means or way to drive business use cases on Cardano that have NFT usage as a core component and can act as an on-ramp to the Cardano ecosystem. This can include any business model based on NFTs. Think about how this is implemented at scale, drawing millions of users who, once on board, can become customers for dApps, tools, DeFi, and other services. This challenge is about building recurring businesses that incorporate NFTs on the Cardano ecosystem. The more types of NFTs that are circulated on Cardano will increase the utility of Cardano and ADA. What should be proposed? Proposals should be framed towards specific use cases, and the community will know of specific cases where NFTs can be used to solve various problems. Focusing on NFTs in general may be most productive, with a strong focus on business models that rely on NFTs as a core component of most transactions. Why is it important? NFTs have the potential to create businesses with recurring NFT use requirements, which increase utilization of the Cardano blockchain. How does success look like? Many high quality ideas will be proposed that can substantially grow Cardano's user base, network utility, network value, and ADA circulation. Key metrics to measure: the number of proposals that directly address NFT use cases in the quantifiable manner, the quality of proposals measured by community interest and engagement, results of any Fund 7 funded projects significantly impacted by NFT utility on the Cardano blockchain.
And now going into the share insight.
Okay, you got to back up, because where did you find that? You have to
All right.
be a little.
So yeah, if we are going to like, oh, this is something I want to contribute into,
Yes.
then you have either share insight button, or when you're scrolling down, it should appear in here up top.
There. Okay, there you go, because you were just a little too fast for me.
Yeah. And if we click it, we are in it.
So can
And
we
so
click?
this-
Yeah.
So for me, as someone who walked through this, I go on that page and I'm hearing proposals, proposals, proposals. And then I switch to here, and then it goes to the insight language. So there's a transition here from proposals to now to insights. And that little transition, it caused me a little bit of confusion, because this isn't where I am talking about proposals that I just read about.
Okay, so what they're really asking here is, can we find ways to improve on the specific brief for the NFTs, can we find any gaps, any weaknesses, or I can't see the exact text.
Really
so
good transitional.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, there is room for a good transitional message, which could be something like, what makes your idea special, or what will make your idea work? So if you're already in the solution mindset, then we say, okay, what's so great about your idea? Then you can start pulling out the major qualities, which would be a result of your insights.
So the insights are kind of like an overview of like, okay, this is kind of, your call to action. This is kind of what I'm, the gap that I'm seeing.
Well, we want to know what is important from your perspective. What did you discover? So if you have a solution, that means you found a problem in the existing system, and you've created something to solve that. So what's the issue you're fixing? And that can lend insight into the production of something that works better.
So in this case, I'm sorry to focus on kind of my subject real quick. And it's the only thing I really have knowledge of right now. So my apologies ahead of time. But in this case, should I have just stuck to my idea and said, okay, there's a hole in efforts to educate and influence legislation that's going to affect, regulation in the community, and NFTs can be a solution to that.
Well, there you have it. Like, that's a beautiful insight, that NFTs can serve that purpose. That's kind of revolutionary and amazing. So there's your insight, in my opinion.
And
okay. So when it said, hey, this is not the time for proposals, that's what kind of threw me off. I'm like, okay, am I not supposed to do that here? Okay, so thank you for that clarity.
But it does specifically, it does ask you for proposals also. It says, it's in the introductory pages, it says, hey, tell us what you think, or give us your solution. So that's invited.
Well, then on the next page where we're on now, it says, hey, proposals not at this time, just insights. And so it's a little conflicting there.
But your proposal, I'm sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
It's separating the difference between what's an insight and a proposal. Because to me, an insight then, just to back up to what you said, Om, and is that your real name, Om, or just incognito?
No, Om is my given name.
Okay, Om, sorry. And I, backing up. When Adam explained it just now, he said, this is the problem that I see. Are we trying to define a problem that could be solved by this particular category? Is that what an insight is?
I believe so. That's what I'm thinking now.
I think
Om, is that what you said?
I was saying that any bit of wisdom that you've discovered is going to be an insight. And most people don't look at themselves that way. They look at their solution, and it takes just a little bit of extra work to go, okay, what's your solution solving? Like, what's that? What did you figure out? How's your thing going to be different? And that fact is crucial to build a tool that's got all the best qualities. So in the insight phase, I think we're saying, what is this? What's the scope? What's the boundaries? What's the parameters? How big does this solution need to be? Can we fix it in small ways that are easy to do? That's what we're all trying to figure out here, how to make this work right. That's why, to me, insights is perfect, because you're like, what's all of our collective wisdom? Let's try and make that thing work. And it's the exact opposite approach that I see in what I characterize as competitive space.
And I apologize because I'm a bit slow at figuring this out. Can we go to the share your insight, what we've been given, and go through that just to see if it'll make sense to me a bit better?
You mean
and
this?
Yeah, share your insight.
So what gaps do you see in how this challenge is currently addressed? So in this, I assume it's talking about this, like, campaign brief.
So you're actually going back to the campaign brief and analyzing it and going and fill in your unique perspective on this particular challenge, what gaps do you see are missing on that brief? And how can we improve it? What
Yep.
wild thoughts do you have about how to best address this challenge? It sounds like it's just brainstorming.
Yeah, it sounds like it's asking for it on different, your input on different levels. Like, hey, did we ask this right? And hey, do you have an idea about this question? So it's asking for a lot of different things, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
Interpreting it.
Because
It
the third option, actually, what Aiden just wrote, it all is,
It's perfect.
it makes sense. Yeah,
Yeah,
it makes sense.
yeah. So it's really asking us for three things. You know, can we just go back over here? No other way, Tiva. Just blow it up again. So in simple terms, please fill in your unique perspective on this challenge. And the challenge is using NFTs in the community. What gaps do you see in how this challenge is currently addressed? So that's relating to OM's reference to if you have experience within a specific space and you can bring some wisdom or knowledge, or you can highlight a particular problem that's occurring, bring that forward. How can we improve the challenge brief? So they're asking us as a community, how could we make the brief better and more easily understood? So maybe we could contribute to making the brief better understood as part of this process. And then the last one is, what wild thoughts do you have about how best to address this challenge? And I think, Adam, you slot in perfectly there with what you've come with in terms of developing an application within the community around the creation of NFTs for basically empowering social good and amplifying social good in the community. So that's my basic understanding. What do you think, guys?
Yeah. Yeah, to me also, all of these three sentences, what he explains, go with the third one.
Thumbs up.
But now that's what I think confuses, because some people don't like it's trying to cover all of the different aspects. I don't know, maybe that's the point, but I think that is kind of going to create the confusion, because this, what you are saying, all the solutions, I think they all will come up from the proposals anyway. But this first two options, to improve the challenge itself and to make the upcoming proposals to come up with these kinds of solutions, is much harder task and will be less noticed. And yeah, so to me, the third option added here actually is the one what is adding, is creating the confusion, although it is.
Yeah, because no, you're right, because it's a borderline proposal request and it's borderline insight request. So the way I would interpret what Adam has done is that, well, it's probably down to the questionnaire itself. So they're asking us, how could we make this better? And I suppose we could tell the community, we need to be more specific about the brief. If you want us to help enhance the questionnaire, then that's what we want to guide our energy to. But if you want us to provide sort of pre-proposal concepts, like what Adam has done, we can also do that, but we just need a little bit more clarity, definition, and then generally people can follow good direction of their own accord. We would have figured this out a little bit quicker. So that's my 2 pence worth. Anybody, Vincent or anybody got any more contributions?
So for me, if I saw the first idea coming up and it showed the campaign brief, and then those questions, it said, what gaps do you see in this challenge? And how can we improve the challenge brief? That would be so obvious for me that I couldn't, because right now it's like, oh, this, if I make a comment or I add an idea, how does it, I'd have to prove that it relates back to the brief.
Yeah,
but if
you're
we
right.
took
Because
the first idea Merrick to do, I guess, copied that whole thing and said, okay, this is the information that we want. Here's your comments and insights into that. And then, you know, like, I don't know enough about NFTs, and I feel that's why I'm shying away from it. But, you know, that we certainly have our expertise, and then we bring in and we go, okay, how about, in my case, it would be something, say in real estate or buildings, and they're using concrete. It's like, can we build with more natural materials that will also empower the community? So that to me feels like it's an expertise in my area and something that I'm passionate about, and I would like to see included in a campaign brief. You know, how does it meet more of the UN goals if it was about the sustainable goals? How do we quantify it? How do we define the words like sustainable? So I'm sorry, I'm going off to a different thing because that's my area expertise, so, or my passion.
But yeah, what you just said was right, and I think that is something we could bring to the actual like Catalyst team to say, hey, in this campaign brief, you kind of need a section to explain what is insight sharing and what we are expected from you. And maybe you suggest to drop the giving these pre-solutions, and this page where you literally see all of that stuff. It would be nice to either before in here to know that what you are supposed to see, or at least, or in this page have also the brief of like if you open it up, it has, like usually it has it. This is a title, and then you see a title. This is a problem statement, and then you see a problem statement, and something similar.
Right. You should,
this is a question. What was answered? Yeah,
I could just see even myself going and copying the brief, putting it in an idea. It'll be out of place for this time, and then just doing those, just even for myself individually as a quick fix, and seeing if this is the idea that should be worked on in the insights.
So now we know what is insight. Shall we go and see other insights too? And I think we don't even need to go into them, and just see and kind of just see what else people say.
Can we move away from NFTs for a second?
Okay, sure. We can.
well, maybe, oh, you're going to look at the responses? Yeah, I'm curious to see how people interpreted the instruction.
Yeah, that was like the goal, but we could also pick a different challenge.
I did make some responses on the first or the second challenge.
Dapps and developer.
Dapps and integrations. I know that I made a couple comments in there, if that would be helpful. Dapps and integrations, the second one, yeah. And I was just working my way through each one.
Just reading through what else would be interesting. Distributed decision making, catalyst value, onboarding, grow Africa, metadata, multilingual.
And when you see those numbers there, that just means that there's 4 ideas.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so let's take maybe developer ecosystems. So we could go actually through all of the 7 ones and just listen and have like a plot of what this group thinks about these. Campaign brief. Okay, so how can we create positive developer experience that helps the developer focus on building successful dApps? Creating an awesome experience that incentivizes developers will lead to increased developer adoption, productivity, and creativity. How success looks like: liveliness, happy, energized developers making money and achieving their goals, mutual help, collaboration, and shared feeling of success. A feeling of unexpected innovation happening on its own. A wide variety of resources are provided for developers, allowing them to focus on business value they can generate and not on infrastructure. Yeah. Cardano has thriving ecosystem of infrastructure companies that don't need to be subsidized by grants and are able to scale their business by monetizing the service that they provide. They are attracting developers to the ecosystem and educating them on how to build application. Key metrics to measure. At the end of this challenge, we will be asking ourselves, did we manage to make it easier for developers to build on top of Cardano? Filling in gaps defined in exploration stage, number of developers actively building on top of Cardano, etc. Qualifying questions. What are the tools that we need to prioritize first? How do we attract developers? What do developers want? And how do they get in it from the Cardano developer ecosystem? What would make a developer? What would make developer motivated to grind through the docs and code, no matter how hard it's to create an app? Okay. What are enterprise developer managers looking for in order to be able to build out enterprise projects, either internal or commercial? Potential directions, developers' productivity. Interface something, scripts to automate stuff, knowledge base and documentation, deployment, samples, hackathons, DeFi. Okay, so that's a campaign brief. Did you understand me? Was it clear? To me, it feels like it is about schooling. It's like creating communities in the community to literally help them to develop whatever they want to develop. And these are just helping questions.
Also to make it an inviting environment for new developers, right?
Yes.
With
Yeah,
the idea
there's
of collaboration.
and getting personal enjoyment out of it. I think a lot of developers end up working on other people's ideas and don't get a chance to provide their own insight. And so to advocate for yourself and to be creative and designing minded can be fun too. And so giving developers that right is nice to see in a community.
Was that defined well enough in the brief for you, Om?
Not exactly, but I think it's implied by saying this whole idea is that we're going to support developers for what they want. So to me, developers, once empowered, are able to self-advocate pretty quickly and well. You know, everyone has an opinion and they know theirs really well, you know.
Because I'm just curious if that would be, like if it would be an insight again to the brief itself, and would you be able to kind of flesh it out, or does that even need to be mentioned?
I'm happy to provide it. That's another nice thing I like about this whole community. Nobody's ever said, don't leave your opinion here.
Yeah.
You know, they may ignore it or make fun of it, but they definitely say, you got a different one? Let's have another opinion. Maybe the next one will be better. I don't know. But yeah, I'm happy to leave my opinion. Sure.
It seems to be what's being asked in the share your insights is bringing something from your perspective. So when you read that campaign brief, you're a developer, you go, I really like this, because from my perspective, developers don't get rewarded, or they get just kind of put in a big soup bowl and not recognized. I really do like this particularly. Is that a comment about a comment that could be?
I see your point, and it does make perfect sense. I think my approach to that same scenario is to say, how could we create a thing that just made it so easy to do that everybody would automatically self-advocate? You know, so I don't necessarily look at how to enable a person or encourage or educate. I'm looking at systemically, what can we do to create and foster that automatic feeling that everything you do is worth something, and here's how to share it.
So
it's
that
for
would,
developer.
and that would flesh out this idea more, self-advocation. I don't see that in the campaign brief unless I missed it. So again, that would be.
I'm happy to provide it. Sure. Yeah, happy to.
And I think, for me, I think, maybe I'm just, missing it, but, where you're getting ready to start your insight, I think if there was some differentiation between, okay, look, we're looking for insights about the actual challenge. In this case, maybe the developer says, hey guys, there's something else that you guys should be putting in here that we should be, using as a call to action. Whereas when we get to the insights, that should be, I guess, specifically for the challenge itself, not, hey, how can we make this challenge better? Or more clear.
I think your
you've got your mic on.
Well, I'm in the midst of a bit of an emergency in the pool here, just for a second. Here we go, baby. Alrighty. Some wise hippie some time ago said something to me once in the middle of the night. He goes, words, turds. And it served me well. Try to be economic with languages whenever possible. I'm sorry about all that. Okay, so in terms of helping developers self-define, I think that, to me, that was implied in the question right off the bat. So self-advocacy, designing it for yourself, for your preferences, is part of what developers do really well. So that, I think, is implied. I don't know how better to design the question without implying self-advocacy. So this is really about how does this community, but why not apply it to everybody? If our tool does it for one group, then our tool does it for everybody. How do you self-empower everybody? And I have a solution for that, and I keep trying to post it, but it's too big a thing to put into one category. So for developers, what do they want? They depends. There's a lot of different things. I think they find it all. Thibaut knows more than me. Seriously, Thibaut, is there a barrier to the developer that wants to pick a project and work on it? I don't see it. I think there's a thriving democracy of activity right now. Developers pick a project and go, hey, I'm into this. And they participate, they pursue it. So I think
it depends how where we draw the line of developer and programmer, because if you're a programmer, you probably don't have any kind of problem to get into any kind of idea. But if you're a developer who is looking to build the tool but don't have the knowledge to take a text file and just make the tool, then you might be having problems to find a team and a way to describe what you want the tool to be like and how it should work in a way that it doesn't take years to develop.
Yeah. So I think the advocacy needed is for the non-developer in the Catalyst system as it is right now. Non-developers need a lot of support to make their ideas palatable to the developers, it seems like. I see it through my looking through the idea space. I've seen a lot of ideas rejected at first glance by somebody who saw a potential technical flaw or some small error in logic, and they just go, oh, never mind. And that one opinion thwarts it for everybody else. So getting our language together, and Thibaut, what I've seen you do with the mini proposal concept, I think that's beautiful. Like a little coaching process to help folks get their thing together and improve their chances of getting funded. I think it's a really wonderful concept. So that to me needs self-advocacy, is that the person who doesn't feel comfortable in developer space trying to get their ideas across. This is, I think the fact of Catalyst is sort of a reactive reaction to the developer workplace, which is you're handed a stack of things to do and you got to do it by a certain time, and that's your deal. And so Cardano and everything around this Catalyst project came out, and developers are saying, hey, taking off their shirts, and relaxing a bit, saying, okay, what do we want to work on? What do we care about right now? So it's a dominated space. This isn't a group of investors chatting about VC startups. This is coders going, hey, what do I care about? And I got enough money for today and tomorrow probably too. Let's do something fun. And that's a beautifully empowered space. But I also feel like they've been out of practice of being creative for a really long time too. So it helps to have people with vision involved. And that can lead to beautiful things. And I see it happening all around us right now. I mean, literally right now, there's some amazing stuff occurring in this very second. I'd like to see more of that. Less focus on how do you feel as a developer and more focus on what's this amazing thing moving towards? What are we creating here? And I'd even say the problem I have with that problem statement, even right there, when you talk about advocacy, this challenge to support everybody needs to begin with like a code of ethics for the tools we produce and the tool makers. Not a whole lot of rules, but one, protect sovereignty at all costs and in every design. We can do that. We could say we will absolutely adhere to this idea that you own every single iota of your data, period, done. We're going to build a system that will only do that. And that's our pledge. And those two things together create anything. We don't need anything, like it's all up to you to have fun in the playground. We've designed these two premises involved. Everyone's important just because you're born. Your data is your own. And you are your own person. If we can adhere to that, then everything else is candy.
Yeah, that's all good knowledge, good wisdom, good good insights for integration into the Cardano Project Catalyst platform.
So am I going to take this recording and literally write everything what you just said into Insight or sharing, or are you going to do it yourself? Or hey,
I think I already did it. I think you scroll down a bit. I think I've let loose the other day. That was fun as hell, by the way. Going from challenge to challenge and just giving your opinion on it. That felt so good. Yeah, baby.
I don't know your name then.
Are you in the which one? You did each one? Om?
As many as felt relevant to what I'm working on. Yeah.
What's your idea?
A lot of them. Om design.
Okay, so not in developer ecosystem then.
I haven't put in a proposal yet. I was intimidated by all the behavior the past couple rounds. So this time I said, screw it. I'm just going to put stuff out there. And then I come across the insights aspect of it. And I'm thinking, well, that's a much better way to suit what I'm trying to do. So I really appreciated that.
So
it's a big challenge.
You've commented on other people's ideas. Is that correct?
I've done that. I've commented on the premise of ideas. I've commented on the systems that we ought to be making and the best way to manage the problems that we're encountering right now, even with the tools we have. Not the best way, but a way that seems helpful. I hope it's not the best way. The better way is always more fun.
Yeah, I like this brief. I don't think this brief particularly, I don't know if they need to rewrite anything. It's pretty self-explanatory for the community what they need is of what you want to contribute there, I think.
I think it feels self-empowered. I like it overall too.
This is the technical brief, just so we're clear. Which brief are we talking about?
The campaign brief?
Yeah, but for which
this is
developer ecosystem.
Oh, okay. So you're referring to Vincent's the developer ecosystem brief. Is that correct?
Oh, I wrote one in there, but no, we don't have to go over that. I just think the campaign brief is fine. I'm welcome to talk about this, but I'm definitely plugging my proposal. I don't know if this is the time to do that. It's something that I'm working on.
Yeah, well, I'd like to hear about it as well. We've listened to Adam's. I think that's a great proposal. So I'd love to hear. Yeah, I'd love to hear yours.
Yeah, well, I guess one of the problems that I was having I think if the community at large, there's a lot of people coming into Cardano that aren't developers, but they're being asked to vote on very technical things. And I think because of that, it's time to start coding in such a way that we can represent what we code in graphical ways that are meaningful and valid. So like if you see a PowerPoint, I think everybody's probably had this situation where you get a PowerPoint presentation and it has like bubbles and lines and things, they're all connected. And you're just supposed to look at that and then you hear the description and you assume that that's how the software is actually going to work. There's bubbles, there's lines, there's arrows, and you just assume that that's how it's implemented. And then come to find out later that's not the truth. This specifically is for decentralized autonomous organizations, for DAOs, things like Catalyst, voting, running companies, things like that. I think it's time that we build a framework and we start building a framework in a library where it's very opinionated, and it is opinionated so that it may be harder to code in, it might take longer and not be super efficient, but you can extract from it valid to scale visualizations of what you're actually coding. And then you can, when you show that to people, they can see where their data is going, how their data is being controlled. They can see where their input comes into the system. They can see where their data is being stored, how their data comes out, who has access to it, how it gets encrypted at each point. And it's not secret. It's just something that arises from the coding itself. But it's a pretty big job. So I mean, it's trying to create a whole framework for developers so that they can produce code that is visualizable to non-coders. But the non-coders can look at it and say, I don't think that's right. I don't think my data should be going there. I think that my vote, why is my vote disconnected? Why is my vote over here, but then there's nothing that connects it to all of the money and the hiring? What's going on? Why is it disconnected? You can't be sure of that, right? And same thing with Catalyst. Like when does the Fund 6 start? Who started it, right? Like this really interesting questions. Like how does a fund start? Who opens up voting? Who opens up proposals? Who opens up insights? Who decides that these changes can actually go through? It just, nobody knows. I mean, somebody knows, obviously somebody did it, but it's not necessarily described in a way that we can vote on. And so that's
the point, isn't it? Like, it doesn't matter who it is, it's not you.
Well, no, that's the thing, it's somebody that we just don't know. It's not a decentralized action.
Yeah, it's hard to trust a system that won't show you how it works. Yeah,
right.
It's pretty weird. Right. Also, the same system saying, oh, we hope to empower you one day, but you can't take the blindfold off till we're done teaching you how to drive.
Right, and I guess I'm trying to say, just don't even bother with the blindfold. Like you don't need to be able to code. You don't need to be able to drive to look at the system and then watch your data go through, or to load up a simulation on your computer and start voting and see what happens. Right, like I think that's the empowering part. Is I think we're at a point now where we can simulate these hybrid on-chain, off-chain systems, all the cryptographic stuff, in such a way where we can allow a lot of people to design systems and stuff that, and oh yeah, this is some of that work, and also like docking and things like that. But we can design systems and we can show it to people, and they can know that what they're seeing is actually what's being implemented, is actually what's being deployed. Whereas right now, I don't think that's possible. In any language and any framework, you just really don't know how things are implemented. You can't trust that what you're seeing in a PowerPoint or what you're voting on is actually what's going to happen. And a lot of the DAOs that we have right now are very, very simple. And they just won't work for more, like the way that the DAOs are being constructed, it just won't work for more complicated things. So the big hope of building like a really complicated DAO with lots and lots of systems connected and modular and stuff like that, right now, that framework doesn't exist. And so people are kind of like, they're talking about it. They're talking about building something that is modular and can dock. But what does that actually look like? What does that behave like? How do people interact with that if they're not technical? And so that's the goal of this proposal. It's to build a framework And then you can see it here, to build a framework that lets you build, that you can extract true to code visualizations of how things actually work. And it's very strict. Every edge is an interaction between the two things that it connects. Everything in there is but that's getting deep. But basically just that's the idea. Is I think we are at a point now where we can start building frameworks for Cardano. And that is a weird time because the frameworks aren't single language or single system. We're not building code for a server that runs in AWS. We're building code that runs on a server in AWS and communicates with the blockchain. And that hybrid framework, that cross things, some things are encrypted, some things aren't. Some things exist in one system, but you have to go through a very kind of roundabout way to get to it. How do you trust information, that kind of stuff. I think it's time that we express that, and we kind of get serious about building systems that people can trust, and showing it to them. And that's what that's about, is building a framework where we can visualize stuff and simulate it, and anybody can do that without knowing how to code. You can assemble these things. You can say, I want the system to look this way, because a lot of people have kind of an intuitive sense of how a system should look, and they can ask questions. Well, is that valid? Does this work? And they can get right away. They can understand that's wrong. Yeah. Okay. I'm done with my spiel. I didn't want to do that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's a nice insight. It's much more in depth than you wrote it down. And what I like about this is this solution is also it's going like an inception, because it's inside, you're posting inside sharing about inside sharing, because this data, this is all about to get insights of the edges and like how whatever frameworks or solutions people come up. How would they work? What are the connecting parts of it? And the more you like, the first time I saw you, it was, oh, that's some smart talk, but I didn't understand anything. Then we went through and we had this like discussion, and then it kind of started making sense. What is the principal things what you're looking at? Because even that back then I didn't get what is a principle for you. And now and the more you like show up and explain it, the more it makes sense why we need it, although I wouldn't still know how to build it, but but I trust that you understand what you're doing because you're getting actual results there.
Yeah, I mean, my goal, I think, is that I think people, the community, if the community can build something like this, right, with these dots and these edges, I think people can do that without knowing. There's kind of, I think anybody around the world that has a basic kind of notion of abstraction and connection can design systems like this. It'd be nice if they could know if those systems are valid or prone to corruption or something like that, right? I think we can give that to them, and then we can and then when people are very, I'd rather vote on this. Other people like voted. People are going to be voting on this. That's what people actually vote. That's what the majority of voters, when they vote on a DAO, they are voting on pictures. They have no idea how it's implemented. They have no idea how it actually works. They're trusting the developers to implement something in a certain way, based on a picture or a couple PowerPoints or a presentation. And I guess this is just, this is flipping the script. This is you seeing, this is direct, this is seeing exactly what was built. And then saying, and then you can vote on that. I think I don't know. I'm excited about it, but it is hard to explain. I'm glad that you're starting to understand it, Thibaut. I'm sorry, I'm getting better, I think, explaining it, but it's still a long way off.
At least the non-technical aspect that you explained, I think it's brilliant. And as someone who, doesn't understand all that, I think having some sort of representation to help me better understand along the way is something that will bring on a lot of people.
Absolutely. Okay. Vincent, do you mind if I ask, do you have a programming background, or is it more sort of, let's say, philosophical or social based background?
My background's, yeah, I would say yes, I have done some programming, but I'm all over the place. I'm actually a biochemist by trade.
Okay.
That
Right.
transition to data science, that transition to making dentistry products for people on Amazon, for Amazon sellers, and is
Right.
now back working for the state. So I'm like all over the place.
So it's a sort of a philosophical
Mm,
driven concept as opposed to a programming driven one. You can see it as opposed to actively.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, well, it started, this isn't new to Cardano. I'm an American. I'm very angry at law in general. Like, I'm very angry at how nebulous laws are, how disconnected they are. If you tried to visualize the code of law, like the federal code of law in the United States, it'd just be, you couldn't do it because it's not consistent. The rules are gray on purpose. And it's always driven me nuts. And I had a lot of friends who went off to law school and became lawyers. And I bug them about this every time. I say, why can't lawyers build better law? Like, why can't they make law more algorithmic, more sensible? Not to like say go to prison, but just to make it so that we can visualize it, so like a regular person could actually understand what they're in for.
Demystify it. Yeah.
Yeah, demystify it, right? Because like,
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm breaking the law when I go outside or buy something or carry a can of Pepsi across a country border. Like, I don't even know what this doesn't make sense, right? So
but that's the underlying premise of rolling of the common law system that has been rolled out.
The very point.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what it's doing. Its job better than anything ever devised by mankind.
Yeah.
It stupefies the masses while it lets everybody else pay for their freedom. It's beautiful.
And
Yeah.
I'm not a fan.
Disempowers the individual.
Oh, I'm being completely sarcastic. I promise you. That was just absolutely. We should ignore it to death. Is how I feel about it.
There's no sarcasm there. The system is working exactly as it's intended. Trust me.
Yeah, no, you're right. It is. And there's
well,
a 1% that will tell you it's fine. Don't worry about it.
That's the very premise of the idea before about having a code of ethics. Our own very basic element of humanity. Human dignity and the right to exist. Forget about begging corporations to give you back your data. It's like, how much did they pay you for it? There's the paradigm.
Yep.
And everyone should be empowered automatically, straight off the bat, even if you don't know anything about it, with the ease of starting up a Yoroi wallet. I open up an app, that's who I am. You don't need to know my name or address, but I'll verify, good enough. And here's proof of everything I've done, who I am, what I've accomplished, my education in every format possible, my experiences, my artistic creations. And it's all quantified. It's right here in front of us.
Yeah, and that's kind of the beginning of where I started thinking about this. But then I just thought, okay, on Cardano, they're talking about governance. We're talking about smart contract governance. How do we avoid going down that same rabbit hole? And honestly, from what I can tell, we're just doing it again. We're just creating, now developers are bankers and politicians, right? So it's
precisely.
Eventually it's going to be politicians that then tell developers, but the same thing's going to arise. There's going to be
there's hope. No, there's a tremendous avenue of hope, and that to me is the means of production is becoming so simplified and modular that it's opened up access to those who haven't had a 12-year degree in computer science starting from 5th grade. If it's open to everybody, then creativity takes over, and a modicum of some logic, but really it's about how do you put things together to suit yourself? And we're reaching that threshold quickly. No code tooling, all the systems that are popping up around the NFT space right now, like NFTmaker.io. This developer has single-handedly replaced all of human interaction as we know it on Earth, making it super simple for anybody just to walk up, mint something as an NFT, call it anything you want, and have it securely in the chain, and auction it, sell it, or give it away as a proof of attendance at your seminar. It's done. It's right there. It's just, waiting to be branded and skinned. We're at an amazing space right now for enabling people. And that, to me, everyone's becoming empowered. So we're going to see some incredible stuff come out of the woodwork in places we never thought possible.
I think to Vincent's point, though, is, and to yours, we are, kind of at the precipice of of a lot of great things happening. But I think it would be naive to think that we're the only ones that realize this, and that the old mechanisms aren't going to try to, dig their claws into it as well.
We can build them out of the system automatically. That's not hard to do. We just ensure peer-to-peer access. That even if they do infiltrate something, it's not the whole. We don't create a Facebook, sure. That shouldn't be too hard.
But ultimately, is the industry even at a point that it can be, like that it is its own entity and that doesn't rely on AWS, it doesn't rely on regulation, it doesn't rely on all these other off the chain, type of mechanisms?
Well, those have to be they have to be involved though, because resiliency matters a lot down the road.
Well, I think that's what Vincent was getting at. They have to be involved, but if we're not careful, are they going to be involved in the same ways that they have been?
They're already trying. The World Bank is coming, they're priming everybody for digital currency. It's a matter of whether we create something that's easier to use faster, that doesn't go through their banking system.
Yeah.
And that takes mesh networking.
One thing to note, if we are talking about banking, then Amazon is probably holding half of the, maybe not half, but quite a lot of billions running the exchanges, and they are all run on Amazon.
Yeah, we can't recreate the old system. That's never going to work. It's futile.
But I do feel like if the time passes and the regulations just don't come and mess with us and just shut down, it probably the decentralized nation will, like the way it works is going to take over, in a sense that we kind of don't need Amazon anymore, but we needed it at that time because we didn't have the technology to build something like, oh, if I hit up my Wi-Fi and the neighbor has also a Wi-Fi, we could have a private connection and no internet at all. And if now everybody has these devices, then technically we don't need any more centralized servers. One thing I wanted to also say before was about the hope and one of my perspective, like, why do we have hope in, example, in this community itself, and particularly this Catalyst community? We do try to like govern it, and we somehow, some way kind of have to get people together to show us a way or a line and who could lead us. And so we have this Catalyst circle which is running, but we are still in a state where we are making the rules as a community. And I feel like the most important thing is to make sure that nobody controls the circle or the way we move for a very long time. But I think we are already doing it quite well, in a sense that we are setting these slow term rules, and every person I kind of see, I haven't seen any bad actors here, but like from since I started, which was a year ago, which everybody's kind of feeling like, hey, I want to give the power away. I don't want to do stuff, but I would like to do this. And if we all act the same way, we're kind of already succeeded. We just have to remember that and keep scaling that same ideology to more people, and empower people in the same way and inspire to work in that way. So yeah, that is my hope and my perspective.
We can do it. I guess in my mind, I just have a sense that if we can see it, if we can visualize it, and then simulate it, like if we can run simulations and play with it like a game, and anybody that wants to play with these systems, they can play with them like a game, and just see something is wrong, something is not behaving well, or this isn't the way I want the system to work, then they can see that right away, and they can even see the parts of the system that are causing the problem. Whereas I just don't think right now that's not in government, and I think even in Catalyst, and as Catalyst grows, that's why I think it's important to do it now. Is that if we can start voting on the vision, the visualization of the system, if we can start creating, and this is just graphs, but I mean, I imagine when artists get a hold of something like that, when they start seeing this happening, they'll come up with better ways of communicating the complex structure and connection that's happening. And I think that'd be really cool for people to be able to just, it's like, you can think of crystal as very pretty, right? But a crystal has very defined structure. When you think a crystal is pretty, when you think the light that hits it is very pretty, you're actually saying, yeah, something like that. Like that would be super cool. I think people should be able to vote on that stuff. And when they vote on it, they know what they're getting. It's not a secret. That's it. It's a crystalline structure, right? Like it's everything all the way through. I think we can do that. It's hard. Yeah. I have hopes. I think we can do it. We'll see.
You're doing it now.
We are doing it now. Now, not to break our great conversation, but I found one home design's insight. So I thought, as a for last thing, let's go through this one to see what you were talking about. The zip chain for hash needs NIAINI. What the heck is that NIAINI? Even introducing the idea of voting opens up personal biases and fantastical thinking, persuasive future tellers via VA for leadership, which is really audience. Let's not vote. Let's follow, participate, and spend time working on to-do list of projects we like. Then your actual involvement votes. All sorts of ways to incentivize or fund projects based on attraction alone. Ooh. Do you want to elaborate?
I think it needs
name...
elaboration, because you've kind of chunked it out and put in a lot of information there.
I think it actually is. I'm trying to make it as simple as possible, which is, to me, people would say vote with your dollar, but in a space where your cognitive ability is the currency at hand, wherever you spend your time is proof of what you think is valuable. And if something's going to be funded and you want to base it on whether people like it or not, or if they find it valuable, then you can pretty easily just take account of who's in which projects and fund it based on popularity or based on their previous successes or any number of metrics, but that it doesn't have to be a voting process. Voting is, to me, very aspirational. You vote for things that you wish could happen, and it's very rare that you're voting on something that you're 100% confident will happen. And so to have certainty involved seems like voting on what has happened would probably be a good system. Okay, honey. Here you go, sweetie. Can I explain more, please, if anyone has any questions?
What does NIAINI mean?
Ni means has, and aini means needs, so or doesn't have. It's Yoruba, and that's in reference to a system where I feel like solve a lot of these selfhood, identity, security, self-expression, all in the walls of a system that's built for disaster logistics. But with those fundamental emotional and physical situations managed, so to speak, in a system that's left open, then you're free to take it from I need a can of beans to I need job training.
What was
That's
ni
open...
and what was aini? Sorry.
Oh, ni is has and aini is doesn't have or needs.
Okay.
And those are the two categories of thing that I've basically built a system around, that starts out with the premise that everyone's valuable, and that the first person out of a building after an earthquake ought to instantly be able to build a network with the second person that walks out of that same building or a different building. And they should be able to match what everyone needs with what everyone has. But hang on, sweetie. There we go. She is an aspiring gymnast and really likes walking on this shallow, narrow beam. Okay, so premise being everyone is born valuable. Just breathing means you're important. And in the disaster, the data that you are is critically important. It saves everybody time and energy if they know exactly where to send the things that are needed and they know what's needed. And so I figured disaster is also a good place that bypasses legislation and permission. If you come in with a system that's secure and works better, you're good. You just start working. And with such a system that's parallel to the existing systems, you have a chance to start over again with privacy and safety.
Actually, there is one kind of issue I see here.
Wait, I have a little bit more.
Okay.
Just a teeny bit more, sorry. Okay, so the premise of the system, as I see it, is that everybody runs their own personal chain to record all of their life's events. And I've been starting to think that NFTs could represent these things pretty well. So the way that my system is pertinent to voting is that with a personal chain of interactions verified by confirming the public metadata of all the interactions combined, you have a system where you can vote more or less by where you put your energy, attention, time, donations, and what have you. Similarly, governance, if they're handed a to-do list of all of the community needs and they do them all, then that person would get a very high relevancy for helping out the community. So we have the chance for a living metric to guide political decisions in a system where people directly voice their needs. And that isn't voting, that's saying, I need this thing. And if other people need it too, then maybe that gets provided for. So there's a room and a different way of thinking about it that can get the same result of voting and still make good decisions. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's excellent, Dom. And it's a world we should certainly be aspiring towards wanting to live in. I think what we're trying to do here right now with everybody's combined effort is we're all trying to contribute to that process of eventually arriving at a point where we could actually all coexist with each other globally on that basis, or something very similar. I'm sure there are lots of people who have somewhat similar ideas. I've been working on a project that involves how do we shortcut all of this, and how do we lift 7.8 billion people up in the flick of a switch, blink of an eye? How do we do that against all the odds of what we're facing into right now? Where my thinking took me, it really originated from Dr. Jacques Fresco. I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Jacques Fresco. He's probably one of the greatest futurist thinkers of our current age. He passed away 2 years ago, but he developed a project called the Venus Project.com, which is an incredible project, but he was also acknowledged by the United Nations in the end, thankfully, for his contribution to society. His vision of society is zero money. Okay, if you can create an environment in the system that the environment in the system intelligently provides for every human being on this planet, we could arrive at a point where we actually need no form of value exchange whatsoever, and we can actually arrive in we can usher in the age of Aquarius. We can convert this predicament, this living hell on earth that we've allowed to happen, not by choice, but it's just purely circumstantial. But we're the microcosms of brilliance, all of us, all 60, and it's not just Cardano, it's Ethereum, it's Polkadot. They're all doing it. Everybody's striving to try and change this shithole of the world that we've allowed to occur. and move us to that sort of elevated space of being from a cohesive, collective, loving, caring, sharing population, and we're all trying to contribute to that sort of picture. So my concept, just to throw my little two-piece worth in, is how do we lift 7.8 billion people up in the flick of a switch, the blink of an eye, and lift everybody up to a modest, comfortable, sustainable standard of living, okay, where we acknowledge, to your point, their energy. So if you go into chemical or biological terms, Vince might notice, the definition of true molecular currency or energy transfer from one cell to another is called ATP, adenosine triphosphate. So I've put this concept together around the concept of an ATP token, where we would just mint 7.8 billion multiplied by 1,000 euros or US dollars equivalent, multiplied by 52 weeks, multiplied by 10 years, gives us 4 quadrillion. And that's a question I want to pose to Cardano. Is the system able to compute in terms of quadrillions instead of trillions? And in the flick of a switch, we can lift this whole entire human race up to that modest, comfortable standard of living. And then we go to your point, is now we focus on, we've removed all this bullshit. We've removed all of this psychological controlling. We've moved up to a level now where we start looking for what's needed. Okay, so it's the what's needed starts driving the energy, the collective ATP energy in human race, where all of these problems that we've created actually become our future economy. And that's where we drive our intelligence, and that's where we drive our energy, is to go out and find these problems, community by community, person by person. Okay, let's lift every human being. You know, we're talking about officially, which is bullshit, 300 million people or 350 million people suffering from depression right now in the world. I think that's closer to 6 billion or 7 billion. I think it's the 8.4% may not be suffering quite as much as the other 92 odd percent of the global population that are living with anxiety, depression, fear, scarcity, hunger, all of these scenarios that we shouldn't be living with. It's time for us to elevate as a human race, and it's only going to happen from initiatives like this, or conversations like what we're having, or your ideas, or Vincent's ideas, or Adam's ideas. It's the collective energy coming together, and that's the antidote to the end of the world, and it's also the antidote to turning this just in time before it becomes too late for us all. So there's my 5 P's worth.
You can equalize without including finances too, by giving equal voice, to every person or every entity in your system.
Absolutely.
And make sure that it's heard.
Sure.
That's again why I seek to turn governance into a customer of data, because they are then in the proper orientation towards their perspective on the citizenry. If the government's job is to distribute things and they need to know where those things are, well, current education and the highest thinking in the field says, don't ask the people what they want. They'll just lie to you and they can't be trusted, and all this other BS that has nothing to do with empowerment. So we can flip that with an instant switch. Download this app, participate in your own situation that's regionally and locally appropriate because you built it right where you're at by working together with other people. I've seen these things work on a large scale. Some pretty incredible possibilities have been deliberately overlooked.
Real quick, guys, I just want to say it's been a pleasure, getting to hear your guys' ideas and to chat with you. I have little kids I have to make lunch for. I hope to be involved. Tevo, thank you very much for the invite, and I hope to be more involved in the community. I just wanted to properly say goodbye to everybody before jumping out of the chat.
Adam, my little piece to you is, I thought your proposal was excellent, okay, and I think you should follow through on it.
Agreed.
And I think you have to wait till the 19th to submit your proposal. So it gives you 5 days to to prepare your proposal and elaborate and then push it through as a proposal. But today was helpful for all of us, including me, to understand the difference between an insight, a proposal,
Yes.
what's the campaign brief really asking us, how could we contribute to maybe making the campaign brief itself a little bit more clearly understood for everybody. But your idea, as Vincent's, as Om's, I haven't heard one bad idea here today, including Melanie's, only there isn't a facility for yours just yet. There isn't a facility for mine just yet. So I'm working as a little elf or assistant to TiVo or whoever needs assistance. And I'm just putting my ideas and concepts to the back so I can help other people's ideas get to the surface. So on that note, God bless. Lovely to see you.
Have a wonderful rest of the weekend, everybody. It truly has been a pleasure, and I hope to see you guys again soon.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah, I do think we could conclude the session for today, because we did realize what is insight sharing, and we did get to see 3 of them. Although in my mind I expected to see a lot, but I think we did solve a much bigger problem, which was what is insight
And how to get there.
and how to get there. Even though I'm gonna stop recording, it doesn't mean we have to go.